Hello and welcome to another exciting episode of Ruby for the Web. I'm your host and your professor, Dr. John Baugh. In this lecture, we're going to focus on how Rails handles the presentation layer through views, templates, and layouts, while also introducing how testing helps confirm that these components work correctly as our app grows. We'll see how controllers, views, and routes interact to generate dynamic web pages using embedded Ruby, or ERB, and how layouts and partials help us keep designs consistent and dry, which is a software engineering principle that stands for don't repeat yourself. You'll also learn how simple automated tests can verify that pages load correctly and display expected content. By the end of this lecture, you'll have created static and dynamic pages using Rails, views, and ERB, applied Ruby logic inside templates to render flexible content, built reusable layouts and partials for cleaner design, used Rails built-in helpers and link generators for navigation, and verified functionality through short, practical tests. We'll continue developing within the same REST demo app project that we used in the previous lecture, so there's no need to start a new Rails application. So let's start with static pages and views. So in the previous lecture, we used Rails scaffolding to generate full CRUD resources. Remember that stands for create, read, update, and delete. Those CRUD resources such as user and micropost. Now, we'll take a step back and learn how Rails renders non-database backend pages like a home, help, or about page using controllers, views, and routes, or routes. I'll say route because the word root has a different meaning later on, that it will mean R-O-O-T, and route is R-O-U-T-E-S. So these pages are often called static pages, even though they can contain dynamic content later. This section will demonstrate the basic Rails request response cycle, which includes a route in config/routes.rb, which defines the URL pattern, the controller action, which handles the request, and the view template, which are the .html.erb, which render the pages that are shown in the browser. This is a perfect way to understand how Rails handles presentation logic before involving more complex model interactions. We'll also briefly investigate some of the testing facilities that we're going to use to show how Rails uses mini-tests to verify the pages and that they render successfully and contain the correct HTML content. By the end of the section, you'll be able to create a new controller with multiple view templates, define routes for static pages, use embedded Ruby or ERB within views, and run a simple test to ensure that pages load correctly. So, we're going to make sure that we're inside of the REST demo app folder from last time, which I see right here. And I'm going to create a static pages controller with home, help, and about pages associated with that. So bin/Rails generate controller static pages home space help space about and hit enter. And Rails has created the static pages controller.rb and a bunch of other files as well, right? So all of these ERB files and static page controller test, etc. Each of those pages, home, help, and about, now has its own route and its own view file. Note that static pages isn't a special reserved Ruby or Rails command or keyword. It's simply a conventional name we're using for the controller that handles simple, mostly static pages like home, help, and about. Now we're going to edit the controller. So let's go under app, which is at the top level underneath REST demo app. We're going to go to app and then controllers. And then we're going to edit the static pages controller right here. Okay, just make sure that it has these in it already. If not, we're going to have to modify it. Okay, so def home in, def help in, and def about end. Each method corresponds to a view file in the app views static pages folder. Now let's edit the view templates. So we're going to add some simple content for each page. So under views, static pages is where we're going to go. So instead of controllers, we're going to go under views. So I'll expand that, and you can see that we have the about, help, and home, each .html.erb. So let's edit the home first, and I'm going to be doing some copying and pasting just so you don't have to just sit there and watch me type. So it's just going to say home in an H1, and then welcome to our Rails application. And then for the help html.erb, I'm going to also modify that code and save it. And then for the about, you can, we're going to paste that. And remember, at any point, you can just pause the video so that you can copy the code that you see on the screen. And then you can start it again when you're ready to move on. So we're going to now set the root route, the root route. Let's edit config/roots.rb. So there's app, and we're going to close out views here for a second. I'm going to look at config, okay? So config is separate from app. We've got the config folder, and I'm looking for routes.rb, okay? So for this one, I'm also going to copy and paste some code here. I'm going to delete what they have right here and just replace it with what I have in my notes. And you can see what it's doing here. You have the Rails application being created, and it sets the root route as the static pages and then # or # home. So that means that instead of being at the, looking for an index file, it just looks for the view named home. And then we say whenever they go to get help, the help page, it should be the static pages /help. And then about is static pages /about. Even though we use a # for this, it ultimately comes down to a static page. And then you have to put resources articles to restore article URL, etc. All right, now let's start or restart our server here, bin/Rails server. And I'm going to see what that does. See if it works properly. It does seem to be working so far. And I'm going to hold down Control and click this. And let's see what happens. It looks like it's opening Edge. I'd rather not have Edge, so I'm going to copy that and go over to Chrome instead. Okay. And you'll note that if I go directly to the IP address or say localhost :5000, it will go to that homepage because we told it where to find it. That's because of that route that we made. If I say /help, that takes me to the help page. And then if I change this extension to say about, that automatically gets routed to the about page as well. So now let's add a simple integration test. I'm going to leave this open here. We can even leave the server really running for right now. And we're going to go under test right there. Okay, test controllers. And you'll notice that there is a static pages controller test.rb. And I'm going to replace this with the code that I'm going to use. So I'm going to Alt select and then paste. And we are requiring test helper, and require is a method. So if you're wondering, is this a special statement or something like that? But it is a method. Remember, if a method takes a single parameter, we don't need the parentheses. We've got the static controller test. And what this is going to do is it's going to call, you can call either all of them separately, or you can just say, hey, I want to test the whole thing. And these are just kind of semi-arbitrary names. Should get home, get the root URL, assert that the response is success, so it returned to 200 and the browser got it and everything else, and then assert selecting of the H1 and home, and that you can, meaning that they exist in the page. And down here for the get help, similar situation, make sure there's an H1 and that says help, and then for the get about, make sure there's an H1 that says about. These are the tests that we're planning on running or want to run in this. Now I'm going to leave the server running over here, and I'm actually going to just open up a new get bash window right here. And for this one, I'm going to say bin/rails space test. Oh, and I need to I need to change directory into the REST demo app first. Now notice it says Lex 6. We're actually on Lex 7, but we're continuing with this code from the previous week, so that's why it looks like that. All right, bin/rails test, because it's relative to this folder. Let's see how that works and if it works. And if it works, it should pass all the tests. Okay, there's a little warning here. It looks like we are getting some errors. Okay, so let's, it looks like, let's go in the routes again. Oh, you know what? We need resources : users rather, and then resources and then : micro posts as well. So that's probably required. And then let's see what kind of routes it's recognizing. So we can do bin rails routes and then -g article. See if it finds article. Let's see what we get. Okay, that's looking promising. Just to be thorough, I'm going to bin/rails db prepare, and that will migrate and perform the other cleanup as well. Let's make sure everything's good. There we go. And now we'll try that again to run the tests. See if we get an improved response at this point. And looks like there's still errors. That's interesting. I think it's because we might be missing, let's see, books maybe. And let's do a bin rails db prepare. This is okay that it's failing because you might come across the same problem, so we'll see that it's working, or see if we can get it working. All right, bin rails test. And oh, looks like it's reducing the problems. Should destroy user foreign key constraint, users control. Okay, well, it's reduced the number, so that means we are getting closer. Let's see. We probably want to make sure that the app model, so let's go here. So app models, and then we've got user.rb here. And we're going to say it has many microposts, comma, dependent. And we're going to tell it basically if it finds dependencies, it destroys them if there's any foreign key issue. And we could try now to rerun this. So bin/rails test and see if it actually overcomes the problem this time. There we go. All right, so we have our issue resolved now because it has removed the offending problems. Now, of course, since we've done all those slight modifications there, we're going to do bin/rails, or rather, sorry, looked at my notes wrong. We're going to do a get add, and then say get commit, and then in double quotes, add static pages, controller, and views for home, help, and about. There we go. So what did we do? So we created and tested simple web pages in Rails using the MVC structure, Model View Controller. So the controller handles the requests, the views handle presentation, and the routes connect the two. This particular pattern is foundational for everything you'll build moving forward. Now let's look at some more Rails-flavored Ruby. So this section or subsection of this lecture that we're looking at is going to focus on the Ruby you actually use inside Rails views and helpers. So you'll learn how ERB embedded Ruby, evaluates Ruby, how to keep Vue code clean by moving logic into helpers, and how to use Ruby blocks and iterations safely in templates. We will also add a small helper for page titles and verify it with a quick test. And again, you'll get to see how the tests work again, just like we did here. So by the end of this, you'll be able to use ERB tags correctly for output versus control flow, iterate over collections and render conditional content in views, create helper methods to keep the templates clean, and write a tiny helper test to lock in the expected behavior. As some guidelines, we want to, in Rails, Ruby and Rails specifically, we want to keep heavy logic out of the views. We want to move it into helpers or presenters. We use Rails helpers for common tasks like links, dates, numbers to avoid hand-rolling HTML or formatting, so you don't have to reinvent the whole thing. All right, so we're going to still keep running our commands inside of our REST demo app. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to just make sure we have data for some users. So I'm going to run bin/rails and then type console. Hit enter, give it a few seconds, and it'll actually bring up an interactive console that we can use through Rails. You'll see that it's a little bit of a different prompt there. I'm going to tell it, we're basically going to interact with the database. We're going to tell it to create a user. So I'm going to say user.create ! And then in parentheses, I say that user will have the name Ada Lovelace and an email of ada@example.com. And of course, you close it with a set of parentheses, hit enter, and it looks like it did work. Okay, and then we're going to just type exit because we can get out. So we've got a new ID, Ada Lovelace. It's got filtered email, and then creation dates, all that fun stuff. So now we're going to use helpers for links and emails. So in other words, we're replacing some of the manual HTML. So the file we'll start with, I'm actually going to close all of these just so we can kind of start a little bit more from scratch. We're going to go into app views users. Okay, so I'm closing the models here, closing the config. We're going to go under app. This is our app here, right? And we're going to go to views and we're going to go to users. I'm going to look at index.html.erb. Okay. And we're going to replace the inside of the users each part. Okay, so right now it's got some stuff that was there from before. But in users each, I have the render user here, link to show this user, all that fun stuff. I'm going to put in, I think the end we need, but I need the inside of this. I'm going to replace that with this new code here, which I'm going to copy over. All right, so I'm going to put that in there. Okay, and the render, let me make sure that this is correct because it does not look like it is lined up properly. We're going to make sure that everything is nice and pretty. So we've got if users any. I'm going to tab that in and see what we've got. Okay, that's lined up. That's lined up. And I think this one looks lined up. I think we're good. And then we're going to modify the inside of the name and the email portion. So we're going to update it even further. Just to show you, this would be one thing you could do, but we're going to modify it to make it a little more idiomatic for Python. So for each list item, I'm going to tab that in a couple times here. And we've got the span here. There may be something missing. We'll find out shortly because it seems to be angry about something or just doing weird color coding. So why do we do this? So the link to and the mail to are route aware. So they're escaped and they're concise. So it's just a real concise way to do this. It'll allow it to recognize that the routes exist, create the mail to, etc. So it does a little bit, it's a little bit more structured than what we were trying to do before, just printing out plain text. Now, a couple other things to look at, to pay attention to are inside of this code, whenever you see something with set of parentheses, like angle brace parenthesis and then parenthesis close angle brace, that runs Ruby without doing any kind of printing. So anything you put in there is Ruby code, can be Ruby code. Now, there's a variation on this, like this one right here, where you have the parenthesis, the angle brace and then the percentage sign and then an equals at the beginning. So that little tiny modification there means that it will print the evaluated result into the HTML at that point. We also tend to prefer time.current over time.now in Rails applications. And just note that any instance variable you define in a controller action is automatically available in the matching view. Okay, so this is how we're able to access this users variable. Okay, so as we are dealing with users here, the users variable, oh, you know what? I think that is correct, but this one, that does not look like that belongs. I think we've got too much of a loop going on here. That's why we're getting some errors. So that's why it would not line up either. So we do want the user's header and the if statement. That should all go inside of the... well, actually, that's outside the if statement. This stays outside the if statement. This one is the one that we need to get rid of. Okay, that's what the problem was. Okay, so we have the users essentially in the HTML. We've got the if statement lining up at the end. There's an end there. The end goes with that if statement, and then another end is for the loop. Okay, so the end right here. No, the end here is for the loop. Okay, so it's already got that one. We may have too many ends. Maybe that's what it was. Okay, so I think that's probably correct. We'll find out shortly, but we'll see what happens. All right, so let's try to run this. We'll say bin / well, actually, the server's already running. We'll see if we get a crash or not. If it crashes, we'll know there's something wrong with it, which is fine. Okay, there's the Rail, or there's the main page. So let's try /users. And there we go. We've got Billy Bob and Ada Lovelace right here. Those are being listed. We could go to new user and create another user, right? So I'll say Sam Jenkins, and he's, we'll zoom in just a little bit here. Sam Jenkins, and he's at samj@samjenkins.com. Create the user, and then it will say you successfully did it. You can edit it or go back to users. Back to users, you'll notice now that it prints or puts all in the HTML, all of them, right? So you got Billy Bob, Ada Lovelace, and Sam Jenkins. All right, so I think we're good on that one. A little bit of clarity on file replacement. So in the app views users index.html.erb right here, we replace the scaffold content with the snippet that I showed you a moment ago. So it's it's printing it out twice. Okay, so this is probably not necessary. That one's not necessary because it does it twice. But we put this here. You've got the if statement. You've got the do, okay, the do while loop. And then right here, you've got this li right here, okay? All right, so now we're going to move forward and use present and pluralize for some clean conditionals. And we're going to update our conditional and the heading line to use more idiomatic Rails helpers. So inside the if here, we're actually I'm going to make some additional changes here. So you've got if users any, and then the do users each, and all that fun stuff. I'm actually going to change that to if users dot present. Okay, so we've got present. The present is more idiomatic, and it safely handles nil or empty collections. And then I'm going to add something else that's a little bit clever. So here, I'm going to type parenthesis equals, and then we're going to put pluralize at users.size, okay, user, and then we're going to say percent and then total and then close the paragraph. That's going to print out the certain number of users. And if it's singular, like if it's one user, it will print out user. And if it's like 15 users, it'll print out users with an S. So it's just to make it a little bit cleaner, a little bit nicer, and it's just an idiomatic way, little helper function or method to help us, right? To help the code be a little bit cleaner, and you don't have to, bulk it up with a bunch of if statements or anything like that. Now, we're going to update the timestamp line to be zone aware and friendlier to users. So I think I already did that. Let me see here. Yeah, we already did that. Okay, so time ago. Oh, no, we didn't. We're going to change that. I'm going to actually change it to time ago in words instead. So let's do that. We'll move this or modify that, and I'm going to change it to updated. You'll notice I have Ruby printed out here, and this is a little bit different than what we had there. So time ago in words, I didn't write this. This is something that's available to us. And instead of printing out some, complex date stamp, like it says right here, rendered at, all that fun stuff, if you refresh it, it'll say something like updated less than a minute ago. And also up here, we see how many users, right? So updated, or 3 users total. So it's getting cleaner. It's just another way to make it cleaner. We're going to extract some of the row markup into a partial and then use collection rendering. So we're going to change some files. So one of them is in app views user. So if I users, there is an user or underscore user HTML ERB. So the underscore is important. That means it's recognized as a partial. And partials are meant to be embedded into other templates, not rendered directly. So what we're going to do is we're going to just modify this whole thing instead of them using the default behavior. I'm going to make it create an LI, and it's going to do a link to the user name, given the path, finding the path, and then a mail to underneath. Okay, so, and now we're going to update the one without the underscore for index HTML ERB. And I'm going to change it so that it's a lot cleaner. Okay, so basically, if I go in here, you'll notice there's quite a bit going on inside of this UL. Well, I can actually modify this, and it's one line of code now because we're using partials. So I'm going to say parenthesis. I keep saying parenthesis. It's angle brace %sign equals, and then we're going to type render because that's the name of the method, and then users. Okay, and then %close. So render users will automatically render the underscore user for each record. So it's cleaner and drier. It does look for the corresponding thing with underscore user.html.erb. Okay, so when you pass a collection of user objects, doing that makes Rails infer the partial name from the class, not the variable. Okay, so it's actually the name of the class. So user with a capital U is the name of the class. So it looks for user.html.erb. Okay. So each element's exposed inside that partial as a local named user. So here's our partial again. So it knows it's using the individual user that we're passing into it, and it knows to grab the name and then find the user path for it, and then also do a mail to on the user's email. If the markup changes, you would update one file instead of doing it everywhere where that's required. And let's also add a title helper and per page titles with the content for. So we're going to centralize page titles so that it can automatically update. We're going to go into app helpers. If I can find it, there we go. Yep, alphabetical. Should be able to find it. All right, application helper. This one's empty right now. And I'm going to put a function in here. So, or a method rather. Okay, there is your method. And it's called full title. So I'm making my own helper instead of using just one of the ones that Rails provides. The page title by default's empty. Sets base to REST demo app. And then if the page title is present, okay, then what do? We do the page title and then a vertical bar, and then we print out the base. So this is that string interpolation or templating. And then otherwise, if the page title is not present, then we just print out the base. Okay, so you're just printing out that REST demo app. Okay. All right, so then what we're going to do is we're going to update the application HTML ERB inside of app views. So I've got that helper made. So I'm going to go to app views, and then we're going to go under layouts this time. And under layouts, I've got application HTML.erb. Okay. And it's got a lot of stuff in it, right? So what are we going to do? We're going to look for the title, and it currently says content for title. It might just say REST demo or whatever, but we're going to make it a little bit different. We're going to clean it up a little bit, make it a little bit prettier. And there we go. So we're printing out the full title. That's our little helper. And then it takes the content for title. And if that content exists, we yield title, which means that's basically what you're telling full title to use. And then otherwise empty. Okay. So content for title checks whether the current view provided a custom title block. And what we're doing here really is we're wrapping these. Okay, so each of the different, we're using the application HTML ERB to kind of wrap the other pages. We're using the ternary operator here, which means if the view has a title, use it, otherwise use an empty string. That's what all this means. And then full title was that helper method that we wrote a minute ago. All right, let's change the per page title. So we've got app views and static pages. And we've got these three. Okay, so for each of these, for about, I'm going to change this to actually contain the content renderer at the top. Okay, content for title about. And then for the help, which is the next one, help.html.erb, I'm going to print that out at the top. And then I'm going to, for the home, of course, as you probably expected, do the same thing. Okay, so it's basically letting us keep the titles consistent and configurable. Pages that don't set content for title fall back to that base name. Content for the yield title that we saw before, note on that is that Rails layout support content blocks, like content for title, that defines a page-specific title. Yield title will retrieve it inside the layout. So if the page doesn't set it, your full title fallback handles the default. And we're going to use built-in formatters and sanitizers when where appropriate. So in index HTML.erb, I think that's already up here. Yep. We're just, this is optional, but we're just going to throw it in here just so you can see what it looks like. So underneath here, I guess, you know what? I think for new user, I'm going to put that at the top. Let's put that at the top. And then at the bottom, I'm going to put this other stuff. So let me put that. Okay. Example price, we got number to currency and then sanitize. Okay. So that's going to, we want to prefer these Rails helpers over manual formatting of the HTML. They're safer and generally more maintainable. Sanitize helper method in particular in Rails removes unsafe HTML tags if we put anything like that in there, allowing for a safer subset. And it's part of Rails built-in protection against XSS, which is called cross-site scripting, which is a hacking type tool, technique rather. So test helpers slash application helper test, not application helper, but application helper test. So I'm going to look here and we're going to go up all the way to helpers, application helper, and then there's application. Oh, we need to add that. That's right. That's a brand new file. I was about to say, I don't think we added that. So application underscore helper underscore test.rb. Okay, so make sure you have that underscore test or you're going to it's going to say, hey, we already have a file with that name. All right, for this one, we are requiring test helper. And what this one's going to do is it's just basically testing the full title with page title. And we're saying, make sure that the title is, equal to about, or about followed by the rest demo part. And full title default, it just makes sure that it's equal to full title. Okay. Note that action view test case, which is what we are using right here, wires in the view helpers automatically, so we can call full title directly here. Okay, we don't need to do any special type of import arrangement. And we're going to run just that test. Okay, so we can do bin bin/rails, and we could say test. We're going to do test and then say app/helpers/application helper _test.rb. We can specify which test if we want to just run one file worth of tests. Could put them also in the tests folder later. But looks like it worked. It says 2 assertions with 0 failures, so we're good with that, I think. And then we want to commit, of course, because we like Git. We're going to say add dot, git add dot, and then git commit m. We're going to put idiomatic view refactors for time helpers, partials, full title, and helper tests. Make sure to close that double quote. Hit enter, and then we are all set with that. Good. Now I can say git log at any point if I want to see what kind of commits have been made. And I can see that all the way at the beginning, this would be the beginning stuff, right? You can hit enter if you need to. That is, one second. So this is the most recent thing that we did. This one's the most recent thing that we did. This is the head. And then it goes all the way down to here. Okay. So, and should be breaking out right now, but it's not. So I'm going to actually trash that window. We'll use another one just to make sure everything's working nice and clean. So brief, yeah, if you're ever interested, you could always do a git status or git log. You can do git status before committing to make sure that you're putting the right files in, to see what's been added but not committed yet. That's what git status helps you with. As a brief recap, the @users, that's set in the user's controller index. Rails auto exposes controller instance variables to views. If it's a non-view, you have to import it. So there's no required import needed for any of the app files because it auto loads by convention. The render @users finds the _user HTML ERB file by its class name. So that's the partial, not by the variable name, but by the class name, which is user with a capital U, but it makes it lowercase and then finds _user.html.erb. Time ago in words, we saw that. That was kind of helpful over here. So for the updated, we have time ago in words, time.current. And it doesn't need any to be included in any of the views. We can just include it in non-view Ruby code. And the content for and yield title are the standard Rails layout hooks for page-specific blocks. Okay, now another section within this lecture, final one is, final major one is filling in the layout. So now that you can render pages and use ERB cleanly, we'll make the app feel like a real site by creating a shared layout with reusable header and footer partials, a spot for flash messages, and navigation links that use Rails path helpers. You'll also see how yield and content for let each page provide its own content block, like for the titles, while the application layout handles the Chrome around them. By Chrome, we're not talking about the browser, we're talking about all the other stuff around them. So by the end of this, you should be able to edit the global layout, safely extract common UI into partials, use link to with named routes for navigation, verify layout links with a small integration test, and some guidelines are that we're going to keep page-specific content inside each view and push shared stuff into the application.html.erb and the partials. That's the global layout, is the application HTML ERB. which we saw over here, right? So this is our global layout file here. We want to generally prefer Rails helpers like link to and current page, notice alerts, etc. over manual HTML and JavaScript. All right, so all of our edits, again, are in here. We're going to add a shared header partial. So under app views layouts, so app views layouts, we're going to add a new file. This one has an underscore in front of it. You have to put that underscore in front of it because it's a partial. Okay. Underscore header HTML ERB. And for the header, I'm just going to paste this here. And you can see what it's doing. It's basically creating a nav bar inside of a header HTML semantic element. You've got the nav semantic element inside there. I'm going to actually bring this down a little bit if I can grab it, if it'll let me. It's misbehaving. There we go. Okay. So we always will have the home, help, about, and users. And then notice the class. Okay, this is just like for CSS. If you have some HTML experience, you know that for the class, it's going to set it if the current page is the current path, the help path, then that means that we set the class to active. Otherwise, we set it to nil. So that's going to control which link looks like it's active or not, depending on which page you're currently on. So we don't have to do a bunch of extra work. Okay, again, you can always pause the video, copy the code, and then come back. So it builds a simple navigation bar, the nav, with a list of the links to the app's pages. And then each LI uses Rails link to right here. And what that's doing is it will generate an HTML anchor tag and then use a conditional expression to add the active CSS class, like we just said. So single header with consistent navigation using named routes and current page for simple active link styling is why we're doing this, right? Okay, let's add a shared footer partial. So that's our shared header. I'm going to actually make sure that's saved, and then I'm going to do a close all. I'm going to go under layouts, new file, underscore footer.html.erb. And for this one, we're going to paste the footer there. And this is an HTML character entity that shows a copyright symbol. And we use the time, current, year, and we say who it's copywritten by, and keep page footers consistent and dry. Don't repeat yourself. And we can also create a flash message partial. This will centralize the rendering of notices and alerts or any customer flash type, so controllers can set messages and the layout displays them uniformly. Okay, so we're going to create one of these. So app views, and we have to actually, what we're going to do is I'm going to create a shared folder because there's no folder named shared right now. Just close the ones we're not using. There we go. Okay, so underneath views right here, I'm going to right click and say new folder. I'll call it shared. And then inside shared, I'm going to create a new file. This new file is underscore flash.html.erb because it is a partial, just like the others. And I'm going to grab that code right there. And then we're going to wire the partials into the global layout file. So we know that app views layouts are where our global layout file is, and it's the application.html.erb. Okay, so in here, we've got the meta tags, got all that fun stuff. We're going to need like a yield and a couple other things. So I'm going to actually copy, and again, we're going to just paste it. You'll notice it's linking to a style sheet or style sheets, and we also have render and yield. So yield is actually where the current, whatever the current views HTML, it will go there. And then the other stuff is basically wrapping this. The leading underscore again is because this is a partial. Okay. When rendering it, you omit the partial. Okay. So, and a little bit of CSS to make it a little nice, a little readable, is we'll edit app assets, okay, right here. And we have the style sheets folder and then application.css. It currently has nothing in it, but just to make it a little bit prettier and we can see it against the rest of it, I'm adding these styles here. These are just small visual cues to help us understand the structure that we just created and help our users see it as well. Now we can do some quick integration testing for our layout links. We'll verify that the header links exist and route correctly. So inside of test integration, so let's close that, test, and then we have this integration folder right here. Currently not anything in it. We're going to add a file. That file's name is going to be just layout_links_test.rb. And inside here, I'm going to copy and paste another set of code here. And again, pause the video, copy this, and then come back and I'll scroll it down. Okay, and then you can copy the rest of it. Okay, there you go. Okay, so what this is going to do is it's confirming the nav presence and that the full title integrates with content 4 on the static pages. So each of these, for this test layout links and titles, it's making sure that there's a success with loading the page, and it's making sure that the elements right here are matching, okay, the appropriate paths and text and everything, and it'll navigate to the help and make sure that that succeeds and that the title is correct. This is how it checks the title. It'll navigate also to the about, using the about path, make sure it gets a success. So if any of these get, like, say, a 404 file not found or whatever, or the title doesn't match what it actually says here, it will tell us that it failed, okay, when we run the mini tests at the bottom. And then navigate to users. So users, assert response, and then make sure that there's the H1 named users in there. All right, let's run just these tests. So bin/rails test, and then test/integration/ layout links _test.rb, layout links test.rb. Hit enter. Okay. Oh, it didn't like that because we're in the wrong folder. I forgot I moved out of that folder before. Okay, so bin/rails test, and then test/integration/ layout links test.rb. Hit enter, and hopefully we get some passes here. Hopefully all passes. Oops, not all passes. Did not work. Okay, layout links test. Let's see, flash. Oh, ERB. Oh, you know what? The file has the wrong name. Flash HTML ERB. Oops. Going to close that. It says REB. I mistyped it. So we're going to rename that to, it's always fun. Okay, Flash HTML ERB. And hopefully that fixes it. So let's run those tests again. Make sure everything's good. Okay, oh, still an error. Okay, nil is not an active mode compatible object. Okay, let's see. So it's getting nil. It looks like it's on index HTML ERB. So if we go there, that should be users. And let's see if we get, finally, the correct output for this test. We will hope. There we go. Okay, no failures on that one. All right, so for that one, before we test our layout visually, we're going to look at how Rails automatically handles the Flash messages. So what's our motivation? So when users create, update, or delete something, they need feedback confirming what happened. For example, user created successfully. In many frameworks, you'd have to explicitly code those messages in multiple pages. Rails, however, gives us this automatically through its scaffolded controllers, and the Flash message system. So The flash is a special hash-like object that stores messages for one request response cycle. So they appear on the next page, usually after a redirect, and then automatically disappear. Okay, so it's perfect for quick status messages. What we're about to do, we're going to look at some code, but we're not changing anything. We're just looking at it. So let's close all these files. Just make sure we're kind of getting a fresh start here. I'm going to move this down gently, carefully. There we go. Okay, we're going to open up App Controllers User Controller. So App Controllers. And then in here we have Users Controller .rb. And we can see the, here we go, create, right? And we've got the destroy, or we got the update. We got, here's the update right here. And then here is the, you can notice the destroy as well. And you notice there's kind of a pattern. You have redirect to, right, in these, which will direct the user to a new page after the action completes. The notice itself, the key sets a flash message that will be displayed once on the next page. Okay, there's our notice. Because we already added our flash HTML ERB partial in the layout, these messages will show now up automatically near the top of the page. Okay, so let's go back over here to our lovely server. We're going to go to, let's see, users, refresh it. And you'll notice now it's starting to look a little bit more like a web page, right? So when we open the browser, we notice now we have a nav bar. I can go to any of these. I can click About. It'll go to the About page, Help, right? Home, and then Users. Goes back here. I've got my 3 users there, and I can always click this new user button at the top, which we could make, or hyperlink. We could make it a lot prettier, of course. For a name, we'll just say Eileen Dover. She falls a lot. Eileen at example.com. Okay, and then you click Create User, and you'll notice that we now have the option to destroy the user, edit the user, and go back to users. So we'll go back to users, and it's now displaying Eileen in our list here, okay, with the other different users. And user successfully created is what it said when we first created that, and that was directly from the redirect to user with the notice user was successfully created. Okay. So if you want, we can try to edit some of these. So let's say Billy Bob decided to make his name look more professional. So he has now changed his name to William Bob instead of Billy Bob. We update the user, and we can go, after we do that, see the user was successfully updated. It's actually showing twice in this case. We can go back to users and then see what we have here. And we do have William Bob listed instead of just regular old Billy Bob. So why does all this work? Okay. Rails automatically passes controller instance variables and flash messages into the corresponding view. So the scaffold generated controller already includes the redirect to and notice statements. There's no extra code really needed. The flash HTML ERB that we created, partial loops through all the flash types, so such as notice and alert, etc., and it renders them as HTML. Because the flash persists for only one request, it naturally disappears after the next page load. So there's no manual clearing required. All right, so let's go back here real quick, and we're going to do a commit, and then we'll be done. So git add, probably need to actually spell git correct, git add dot, and you can always do git status. As I mentioned before, it'll show you what files were created or changed or deleted, and these are sitting ready to be committed. Okay, so things that we modified, we created some new files like the footer and the header partials, and this flash right here, and also the layout links test, and we're ready to commit it. So git commit -m layout header footer flash partials, and then wire into application layout, and then add layout link tests. Okay. And of course, we commit it. And if you were using GitHub or Bitbucket or something like that, you could always do a push. Okay. And you could do a push onto GitHub to a specific branch or whatever you'd like to do. All right, so that's what I've got for you for this lecture. I hope that was informative, and I will see you in the next lecture. Bye-bye.